Hey friends! My name is Desiree, aka Mama Friendly, and I do all sorts of videos on this channel, from cooking videos to planner videos, vlogs, hauls, homeschool videos with a Disney twist, a little bit of everything. So if any of this sounds like fun to you, I hope that you'll subscribe and join me on my YouTube adventure. This video is a collab hosted by my friend Tamara at Southern Wife Everyday Life. She's been challenging us for a couple years now to do these monthly cookbook collabs where we're meant to share favorite recipes from our favorite cookbooks so that we might inspire our viewers to break out their own cookbooks. If you've been following my channel for a bit, then you also know that I've been sharing a Cuban recipe every month. In most cases, I'm having to adapt them to make them gluten and dairy free, because I'm diving more into my Cuban culture and heritage this year, but also because I have allergies and food intolerances, and so there's a lot of traditional foods that I've been missing, and I just don't want to miss them anymore. I would like to eat these foods. So I've been challenging myself to make a new Cuban recipe every month. And so I thought that this video would be a great opportunity to take the cookbook collab and my Cuban challenge and mash them together. As such, I am sharing a recipe, or two actually, from Latin American paleo cooking. I really like paleo and Whole30 type recipes because the gluten and dairy free is already built in. I don't have to make any adaptations because it's already taken into account. And so this book, I'm gonna have it linked down below in case it looks interesting to you, but I've made quite a few recipes from this book already and I'm yet to be disappointed. The recipes that I am going to share with you today are Mojo Criollo, which is like the Cuban standard as far as the condiment, but it can also be used as a marinade. And I'm gonna use that Mojo Criollo to marinate a Lechon Asado, which is basically a Cuban roasted pork shoulder. It's very tender and moist, but it's got some yummy rendered fatty crunchy bits on top. It's gonna be citrusy and oniony and garlicky, the epitome of Cuban food. This is something that you can count on having around every holiday, every family gathering, pretty much every Sunday. Somebody's making lechon asado. So first I'm gonna show you how to make the marinade, and then I'm also gonna make a second batch of the Mojo Criollo to serve over the top of the lechon once it's all said and done. Now before we get into the recipes, let me remind you that because this is a collab, there's gonna be a playlist. So once you've finished watching my video, you can look in the description box where you're gonna find Tamara's channel linked, and also a link to that playlist so you could see what all my friends made this month as well. Now let's get into it. All right, friends, so first things first, we're gonna make our Mojo Criollo. And before we jump in, I do want to remind you that this is a real live working kitchen in a real functioning home. So there's gonna be background noise because people live here. So that being said, we're gonna jump right in. So first thing we're gonna need is a cup of naranja agria. This is sour orange. Now, I personally had a hard time finding the actual fruit, which is saying something because I am in a predominantly Hispanic, Latino area. So you might have a hard time finding this as well. If nothing else, look for the ethnic aisle of your grocery store. You're gonna need a cup of this for one recipe's yield, which is about 1.5 cups of Mojo Criollo. Now I'm going to make this twice. I'm gonna make one recipe for use as a marinade, and I'm gonna make it a second time once the lechon is ready to use it as a condiment afterwards. And Mojo Criollo is very commonly used as both, so that's what we're gonna do. So again, that was 1 cup of naranja agria juice. We need 8 to 10 cloves of garlic. I've got the chopped garlic here, and I never measure garlic, so let's just say a lot. We're gonna use a lot of garlic. We're gonna use a teaspoon of oregano, a teaspoon of salt, and about 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. Now again, I don't measure spices, so a quantity. I'm gonna use some of each of these things. And we're also gonna use about 3-4 tablespoons of olive oil for the recipe. So as I said, I'm going to mix this all up now, and tomorrow when I make the lechon, I'll make another set so I could use it on top before we serve. Now the recipe that I'm using in the book says to put all of these things into a food processor or a blender and pulverize it until it's a creamy consistency. I've never done that, and I've never heard of people doing that. So I'm just gonna combine everything in a bowl. I'm going to cut slits into our bone-in pork shoulder roast. So I've got, whoops, pepper down. I've got a 4-pound pork shoulder here. I'm gonna cut slits into it and poke holes in it so that we can help the mojo penetrate. I'm gonna try my best to get it into a Ziploc bag. If that doesn't work because it's pretty big, I might just put it in a dish and cover it in saran wrap. But before we do that, it's gonna be the pork, the Mojo Criollo, and a red onion that I'm gonna slice up. And I'm gonna leave that to marinate overnight so that we can roast the piggy in the morning and have it ready for lunch. And like I said, at that point, I'm gonna make a second set, if you will, of Mojo Criollo to serve over the top. So for now, I'm gonna mix all these ingredients together in a bowl, like I said. I'm gonna chop up my onion, and I'm gonna poke this guy and do my best to get him into a bag with all of our friends here so that he could be nice and flavorful for tomorrow. Alright friends, so it's actually been about 36 hours because I meant to cook this yesterday, but I did not have time actually in my day. I was not home. So here is our roast that's been marinating for a long time now. It should be super flavorful. I had a roasting pan, or I have a roasting pan like this one, which is completely not necessary. It's got the little grate to let things drip down to the bottom so that the roast is not sitting in its own juice and getting soggy. This is great for roasting chicken, but the recipe says not to use something like this. They want me to use a regular sort of roasting dish because I meant to slice 2 large onions and make sort of a bed down here and then put the roast on top so that as the fat renders, it kind of cooks the onions, and that's gonna be so good to eat with the pork later. So this has been sitting out at room temperature for about a half hour while I'm waiting for my oven to get to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. It's important to let it come to room well, not room temperature necessarily, but to give it the half hour at room temperature so that it's not cold when you put it in the oven. It'll take much longer to cook that way. So we're going to slice up our 2 onions, put them in our little situation here. I'm gonna put the pork on the onions. This fat side is gonna go up so that it renders down onto all the meat as it cooks. And it's gonna cook at 400 uncovered for an hour. After that hour, I'm going to, without turning the oven off, I'm gonna turn the temperature down to 300 and I'm gonna let it continue to cook. It says it could take up to another 2 to 3 hours longer because it's supposed to be 40 to 45 minutes per pound, but after an hour and a half of roasting at 300, so 2.5 hours roasting total, you can start to check the temperature with a meat thermometer. It needs to read 185 Fahrenheit before it's safe to take out and eat. And the roast will be done when the meat shreds easily with a fork and the fat on top is nicely crisped. Mine does not have too much fat, so I'm not going to be necessarily looking for that as a sign of doneness. I'm going to rely on the meat thermometer. But I'm going to serve this with some of my Mojo Criollo, a second batch that I'm gonna make. Thank you, oven. And some white rice, and it's gonna be amazing. Alright friends, there you have it, our Lechon Asado with Mojo Criollo, which I served with some tostones and white rice. Very, very traditional plate of Cuban food. It was delicious. I will say I added some lemon juice to the marinade and also to the Mojo Criollo that I served as a condiment, because the original recipe I felt was missing a little more of that sharpness that I'm used to in our own family's recipe, but I did want to stay true-ish to the cookbook. So wanted to let you know about the alteration I made, but I thought the flavor was amazing. The texture was really, really good. It was an authentic meal. Granted, typical Lechon Asado does not have any gluten or dairy to speak of, so turning it paleo was not a stretch. But it just goes to show that whether you're eating paleo, Whole30, or just a standard diet, Lechon Asado is something that's accessible for most people, and most people are gonna find it very, very tasty. If there was one typical plate of food that you could think of to represent your culture, what would it be? Let me know in the comments. And if you decide to give this recipe a try for yourself, I would love for you to come on back and let me know how you liked it. Remember before you go to check out that playlist that's linked in my description box so you can see what all my friends made for their cookbook challenges this month as well. And I want to thank you so much for being here and watching this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, I hope that you will please give it a big thumbs up. I'd also love it if you would subscribe and click that notification bell, because I post at least 3 times a week and I wouldn't want you to miss a minute. Thanks so much again for watching. Bye!